All right, third time lucky, trying to get Geraldine on this call. She's going to try from her phone this time rather than from her laptop. We wonder if that might have been the issue. So hopefully she can request to join in a moment. I feel like we need some on hold music. Do, 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 do. Aha. There we go, we've got it. Bring them onto your video. Send invitation. Hey, there you are.
Hey! I'll get there eventually. Yeah, it seems the laptop doesn't like it. Yeah.
We're here. I love your lamp in the background. It's very nice.
This is my therapy room that's in my garden.
Oh, nice.
So that's where my clients.
Nice panel. Very fancy.
Yeah, it's. I like it to be. Oh, my name is Serene Spiritual, so I always like everywhere to be serene and a bit of a sanctuary. That's the plan.
Wow. So here. Oh, thank you. We've been trying to get this together for a while, haven't we? And just
a little bit. But we've both got kids and stuff, and yeah, life, and it's been Christmas, so
absolutely lots of excuses.
Yeah, they're reasons.
Absolutely. So healing the mother wound. This is your bag, right? This is your absolute speciality. And so we had some conversations when we first met at our Hay House Writers course. But this is such an expansive topic and such an important one, particularly around Christmas time. And I guess originally we were going to talk about expectations of family at Christmas and stuff like that, but I still think it's really valid to talk about that as we reflect upon this year's Christmas, you know. So why don't you just give yourself a little introduction and then how you got into the work that you do.
Okay, so I'm a Serene Spiritual Empowerment Guide, and I use spiritual hypnotherapy, inner child therapy, and coaching, mentoring to help women who've experienced a toxic relationship with their mother. And that isn't necessarily, a lot of people, when they think about a particularly bad relationship with the mother, they think that must have been physical, must have been deep neglect, must have been, you know, very obvious harm. But a lot of the women I work with, it's much more like covert narcissistic behavior, emotionally immature parents, where it's more just a complete disrespect for your boundaries, giving way too much responsibility when you were far too young, not allowing you your space, not allowing you your opinions, you know, putting far too much pressure on you when you're young, or expecting you to be what they want you to be, or like them, an extension of them. And this can lead to things like people pleasing, low self-esteem, not being able to trust yourself and your own opinions, which if you run your own business can become a big problem. And I mean, I could go on, like the impact it can have on you is huge. It affects every part of you, and it really affects your other relationships in your life. And that's my job, is to get you to love and honor yourself exactly as you are. You don't need to change. You're beautiful exactly as you are. And then that enables you to have much more loving, happier, healthier relationships in other areas of your life, because you start showing people how you want to be treated. But you also start repelling the ones who don't want to treat you well, and you start attracting the ones that do. And it's really, really beautiful. So, but I do this work through, a big part of the way I do it is helping people to connect with their inner divinity, that spiritual, calm, eternal part of themselves, but also with the love of the universe through their spirit guides. And that's not for everyone. Some people, I don't do that side of the work. Some people I work a lot more around neurodiversity, because that tends to be a big issue in this field as well. So I work differently depending on who I'm with, but in my own healing journey, which is why I do this, is the spiritual element has been massive. I cut contact with my mum 6 years ago, and I hadn't realised the damage she was causing me for a long, long time, because it was very covert and it was much more emotionally manipulative. And I just didn't realise. But when I was kind of lucky that I got the perfect storm of, I trained in working with domestic violence victims. I'd been a probation officer and substance misuse, but I moved into working with domestic violence victims. And whilst doing the training, it was a bit like, oh, this is very familiar. And at the same time, I was seeing a counsellor who was amazing, and I was becoming a mother myself. And it really does help you to start thinking, I wouldn't do that to my children. Why are you doing it to me? And it just really all started to hit home. And I tried putting boundaries in place. Things just got worse. So in the end, it was my sanity and my ability to be a good parent versus keeping in contact. And I couldn't, those costs were way too high. And I had to put contact.
I think, sorry, if I could just probe with a question there. I think that, I know from my own experience, becoming a parent drags up so much stuff that you weren't even aware of from your childhood that comes to the surface, behaviors that you start repeating because they're learnt from your childhood that you didn't even know you had within you. So about how your relationship changed with your mother when you had children.
Yeah, it was, I think the big difference was she was still making the same demands on me, never mind the fact I now had my own children. You know, it didn't seem to matter to her that I needed to be with them and do things for them. She was still really demanding and would have very strong opinions on certain things. For example, my daughter is autistic and learning disabled and has real problems with incontinence. But all I got from my mum was, it's these modern nappies, it's these modern nappies. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Basically, it was me being a bad parent. You know, you shouldn't be using those. You should be instead of just supporting and being there. There was always judgment. And then it was becoming more and more evident that she was going to start doing the things to them that she'd done to me. And I wasn't allowing that. So she was trying to put on them negative opinions and perspectives of other family members, particularly my father and his wife. I wasn't going to allow that. You know, I worked hard healing those relationships. I certainly wasn't having it passed on. And then there was an incident which is really clear about the narcissism, where she wanted to show my 6-year-old daughter, who was learning disabled, a video of her, she's an actress, a video of her being attacked and she just looked like herself, in her own wheelchair by a monster. And she wanted to show that to my 6-year-old child, who was more mentally much younger than that. And only because I stopped her before she did I prevent it happening. So, I wouldn't have done it without asking you. It's like, you shouldn't even be thinking. You just want somebody to stroke your ego. Like, look what I've done. Instead of thinking, maybe I might just traumatize a small child by allowing them to see her grandparent being attacked. You know, it was just like, what? It was just incredible. So yeah, having them and seeing the way that she interacted so selfishly with them, you know, like, I need a hug rather than let me give you a hug. Big difference.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just became, and it was just like, I wasn't being the parent I needed to be. I was losing my temper with my children, and I'll admit it. I made big mistakes. I screamed at Emily before I knew what was going on with her, and I would throw her across the room out of rage. She was a very, very challenging child. Doesn't justify what I did.
Yeah.
She always landed somewhere safe and soft, and that was quite on purpose. However, I know that I will have caused trauma to my child. The difference is I'm ready to take complete responsibility for that and to hold whatever space she needs to process that in the future if she's able to.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
I just want to say thank you for your honesty there, because I think so many people don't talk about their failings with their children. And it's not necessarily, no one's justifying the action, but it's not about the action. It's about taking accountability. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. And that is the difference, I think, between, not that we should good and bad people, but between a good parent and perhaps an unhealthy parent, is that accountability, because all parents lose their shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that's what I always say is the difference between a difficult relationship, a challenging relationship with your mum, which I still support people with, but a toxic one is when they won't accept that they've caused you harm, and they won't take any responsibility, and they certainly won't accept your boundaries or that you need to do stuff to take care of you. And it's that absolute lack of acceptance on their part. That's when it becomes toxic, because they start gaslighting, and it's so damaging.
Absolutely. Yeah, so much for sharing that story. I think it's so important. And particularly when I think about my children, who are both adopted and have experienced significant early life trauma from their birth parents, and will absolutely, undoubtedly have mother wounds. You know, I guess as the more work that I can do on myself, the more that I can support them to do work on their selves as well.
Oh, yeah. That's, people say, where do you start with your children? Start with you.
Yeah.
Start with you, because it's likely if your child is acting out, unless of course there are, you know, if there's brain issues, autism, things like that. But even so, start with yourself, because it will just enable you to have that time and space. I always say, my son, who's a few years younger than Emily and was much younger when I cut contact with my mum, he got a different mother. You know, I healed so much more when he started, you know, and he had his tantrums and was a bit older, and you know, would be throwing cushions. Bless him, he only ever throws cushions, so you know he's not really trying to hurt anything. But he throws cushions around them out of a tantrum and say horrible things to me, and I'm able to just sit and hold that space for him and just wait for that storm to blow over, and then be there to catch him when he bursts into tears, you know.
Yeah. I think it's the same between me, my eldest and youngest. I'm a totally different parent to each of them because of what I've learned and what I've had to process and go through. And also my eldest daughter, like yours, is neurodiverse. And so, yeah, that adds another layer.
Certainly does. Several. Yes. Yeah. I mean, for me as well, I've just discovered, well, not just discovered, but just formally had diagnosed that I'm neurodiverse. I've been diagnosed with inattentive ADHD, which the psychiatrist believed was possibly inherited from a maternal line, but was certainly triggered by the trauma from my childhood. So that's been a whole other layer of healing that's going on right now, and brings up a lot of things around, okay, that's why I behaved that way, that's why this happened, but also starting to realize, oh my God, that relationship impacted my brain. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize, is particularly with parental abuse or narcissistic abuse, it impacts the brain, like it damages, and it can't be healed. It can, but yeah, you've got to be very, very kind. Every woman that works with me will tell you that one thing I say over and over and over again: please be gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
Please be gentle to yourself. Yeah.
You said something earlier which I really liked about exactly the way that you are, not looking to change anything, but actually moving into acceptance.
This is one of the first things I will usually say to anyone I work with is, you're not broken. Yeah. You are a beautiful, divine being having a human experience, and that human experience is not easy. Yeah. But we're here to learn from it. That's the whole point. But you are still, under all that, a divine, eternal being, and there is a point of peace and calm and clarity within you. It's just, when you've had somebody toxic around you, they get you as far removed from that as they can, because it's such a source of strength and clarity that they don't want you anywhere near that. Yeah. You know, I've worked with many women who've experienced a domestic abuse relationship, and they particularly, I think it's a bit different with parents. It's really hard to know how conscious their behavior is, but with a lot of narcissistic men in relationships, a lot of it is quite clearly conscious, and they do purposely keep you away from people who will give you clarity, keep you away, keep you tired, so you can't be in contact with your own emotions, you can't trust your own perspective. But you will also find that, you know, I certainly experienced that. I was isolated from family members for a long time, particularly the ones who didn't like her. You know, they were really poisoned for me, because they would have reflected things more honestly to me. And it's really hard to explain the extent of programming that can go on. Like, I really thought the sun shone out of my mum. I thought she was the best thing in the world for a long time. And had anybody tried to say to me, this relationship is codependent, it's harmful, it's not healthy, it's enmeshed, I would have cut them off, because I was so enmeshed, and so I felt under a spell. That's how it felt. And I had to break that spell to then see it clearly. And I had to do that for myself. Nobody else can do it for you. And I was very blessed that my husband, he just kept quiet and just supported me until I could see it for myself. Now he's not quiet anymore. Because there is also an issue with craving. When you have had a relationship like that, you can crave them once you've cut contact. The cravings can come up, and you need somebody to remind you why you cut contact, what was the harm. And he's very good at doing that for me in a very gentle, loving way, but just like, please remember this, please remember that. And it really helps. You need that strength.
Let's talk siblings, because you have siblings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how are you happy to talk about that relationship? And no, okay.
I love and adore my brother, and I have made it a promise to him that I won't discuss him publicly.
Perfect. I mean, yeah, well done for standing up for that.
I will always protect him. He knows that.
So one thing that you did touch on was around your mum's consciousness of her behavior, or whether it was subconscious, or whether, you know, so how far down that road have you explored in terms of her experiences of life and why she is the way that she is?
I always give a warning with this, because one, you're never going to fully know why they behave the way they do. Number one reason for that is they will never engage in the inner work or the therapy to find that out. Emotionally immature, narcissistic personality types find that extremely difficult. It's very unlikely, particularly narcissists. They just won't. They're far too comfortable in victimhood. They can't do that work. And we have to accept that they're not going to do it. There is, however, some comfort that can come from reading around covert narcissistic personality types, emotionally immature parents, can give you some insight into what's gone on. And quite often there is trauma of their own. They've got their own wounds that they've not healed, and that's usually the source. And I would say the number one cause is fear. It's usually a fear of being abandoned, a fear of being rejected, and there may be other fears going on. And I certainly think with my mum, because I was her carer from being 12, and she was physically very ill, as well as there was mental health stuff. She became deeply dependent on me. And when I started wanting to be a teenager and have a life of my own, and then certainly when I moved away to London, deep fear kicked in. And I always feel like she chose fear over me. She decided the fear was bigger, and she allowed that to take control more than her love for me, which is heartbreaking. But I have to accept that she was doing. I think we really have to accept that they're doing the best they can with the understanding that they've got.
Yeah.
And that's what she's doing. And that's where I don't really talk about forgiveness very much, because forgiveness is something that people put too much pressure on.
Yeah.
I don't actively encourage my clients to forgive. I encourage them to accept.
Yeah.
And eventually,
yeah.
Eventually, forgiveness hopefully will come, but that's not what frees you. It's the acceptance. Forgiveness is a wonderful thing, but yeah, allow it to come, don't force it.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. But for me, with my mum, a lot of the forgiveness has come, and forgiveness comes in layers as well. Like, I'm able to forgive some things, and then something else will come up, and I have to go through that process again, and that's okay. But yeah, I'm able to see that she's done the best she can, and my heart goes out to her. It's really funny because I will send love out with very strong barriers that nothing comes back. The energy goes one way, and that's but you know, I see that this is all very sad for her. She's lost contact with me, with her grandchildren, and I'm sorry about that. That is very sad, but I was left with no choice, and I don't regret it for 1 second, because my life has improved immeasurably. But I'm also very grateful to her, because without all this learning, I wouldn't be able to do what I do and have the career I have and help the women and have the impact that I have, and I'm really grateful. And she also, there were things about her that were good. You know, she gave me my passion for politics, for welfare, kindness politics. She gave me, which sounds completely ironic, but it's true. And she also gave me a passion for animals and the planet. So she taught me some really wonderful things too, and I will always say thank you for that.
It's good to have balance, I think, and the recognition on both sides of that coin.
Yeah, I'm lucky to have that, because I do work with some women where their mothers gave them very little.
Yeah. But
that in itself can cause pain, because sometimes if somebody's 100% toxic, that's almost easier than if it, I have to say easier in one respect and certainly not in others. But having the imbalance, that instability, that she could be really lovely in some ways and then really awful in others, that instability can be damaging in a whole different way. And the grief that you then, when you have to cut contact, is immense and tends to come in waves.
And possibly, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but may come back for your whole life in moments, or
oh yeah, there's certain things come up, and there's just, and I think there's a part of you, I think this is getting less and less, but this was major when I first cut contact. There's just angry with her that, you know, could you not just let go of that fear? And she had the potential to be a wonderful mother, to be a wonderful grandparent, if she could not make everything about her and not hold on to the fear and the anger so much. And that's sad, but I have learned to accept that. But yeah, there'll be certain things come up. I think it got harder as well because we lost my in-laws. Both my father and my mother-in-law have died within recent years, and that brings up a sadness for my children. They still have my father and my stepmom, which is great, but they live far away. So there's a mourning for my children to have, because I was blessed with the most amazing grandparents. My mum's parents were very, very dear to me. My maternal grandmother, when in the last few years of her life, was my rock, and she supported me through cutting contact with my mum. She had my back. And I feel for my children. They're not going to experience that, but we have to accept it.
So can you talk to me about the spiritual aspect of this and how that's helped your journey? And I know you don't use it with all of your clients, but where it resonates. But I mean, how does it resonate for you, and how has that impacted what you do?
So I joined a spiritual development circle when I was 19. My mum introduced me to spirits. That's another thing I'm very grateful to her. She introduced me to Louise Hay and Deepak Chopra and meditation, and I'm so grateful for that. And I joined a spiritual development circle when I was 19 and discovered I had an ability to connect with spirit guides particularly. And whilst I kind of, I never put that stuff away, but I didn't focus on it for years, you know. And then when I cut contact with my mum, that came up really strong, like their support. I could just get still and I would feel them with me, supporting me and encouraging me. And then shortly after cutting contact, I started training as a hypnotherapist. And when you go into hypnosis, you change your frequency and it's easier for spirit to come. So my connection with them just grew exponentially. And they started getting involved when I work with clients, which is wonderful. But for me, they just brought that real source of unconditional love that's been missing. You know, there was nothing that I could do that would make my spirit guides turn on me in any way. They just are not capable of it. The love you get from them it's not a love that's a mood, that's an emotion. It's a state of being, and it's so pure and it's so beautiful that it can't help but heal. And they would just be there for me through it. And they just gave me reassurance that you're doing the right thing. You can't be with her right now. You will be together again and beyond this, but for this life, no, you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, you're done. Yeah.
And they helped me to, through my work, I work quite closely with Archangel Michael a lot, and he loves removing cords, energetic cords to other people. So I had a lot of work with him in the beginning, helping me to remove those cords for me, but now he works closely with me in removing other people's cords. I'm smiling because he gets so giddy when we do. He's just like, oh, let's go, can I do this, let me do it. So it's really lovely working with energies like that, and it's just been very validating. Like there's one reel that I've done that gets a lot of interaction is just me telling the story of walking through the woods one day with my dog, and I wasn't thinking about anything, which is rare for me, and I just heard this voice in my head just say, it's not you who can't have her in your life, it's her who can't have you in her life. And I was just like, well, yeah, because she's the one who would get angry and react and cause me harm, not the other way around. And it was just like a huge weight taken off. And it just felt so profound. I remember sharing it with a friend who'd experienced an abusive marriage, and she was just like, oh my God. She said, that's true. And that's when spirit, just feeling their support. Just when you've not had a mother particularly, or a parent that's made you feel safe. And I mean safe not just physically but emotionally. You know, that person that you could rely on to be stable. You know, I would come home and not know what I was coming home to. She could be suicidal, she could be angry, she could be happy. She would self-harm in front of me. And I had to learn to be very sensitive to her emotions, and that's where a lot of empathic skill comes from, is growing up in an environment like that. I also believe we can be born more sensitive too. It just gets enhanced by situations like that. Yeah, you learn to get really sensitive. But that sensitivity that I learned from that has enabled me to be more sensitive to spirit. And I'm really grateful for that too.
Good. So if somebody comes to you with, some mother wound issues and they want to work with you, what is the process from your perspective? How do you begin working with someone? What would their first appointment or meeting with you be like? What is the experience that they're going to have with you?
Thank you for asking that question, because it very lovely allows me to introduce my serene way of working, because I do have a protocol, and it's loose because everybody's different. Yeah. And you can plan your sessions and you go in completely different. It can depend what the client brings, and sometimes it depends where the subconscious takes you, or what spirit brings. But generally I take them through my serene process. So first we start with just understanding what a toxic relation looks like, understanding the different ways that harm can be caused to you. Hence, this is the book that I'm writing, and why we met. The first chapter of the book is looking at that, just understanding what a toxic relationship looks like, understanding what the consequences can be for you, understanding that, oh no, that's your fault. It's your job to heal it, but it's not your fault that it happened. So that's where we start. And then we move on to also understanding that you're never going to fully know why. You're just not. And you can't change her. You can't do that. Only she can do that. Or whoever the person is, because I do work with people around other toxic relationships. And then we start looking at serene method, my serene way, which is stillness, emotions, reconnection, energy, now, and empowerment. So stillness, we're exploring how you can get still within yourself, reconnect with that energy within, that divine energy that runs through all things, that runs through you too, getting still and reconnecting with that. And I do look at a spiritual approach called the 3 principles, which really helps you to connect with that and helps you to realize that you're living in the experience of your thoughts, and so how you can change your whole experience of life. Then we look at emotions. So most people try and repress or run away from their emotions, and this is about working with them, that they're indicating to you that something needs to change, that they're indicating to you that maybe you can't take your perception of the world right now, that maybe your vibration, your consciousness is low, and let's get that lifted up. Then we look at reconnection, and reconnection is kind of in 2 ways. Reconnecting with your true self, reconnecting with who you really are, not who you've been told you are, but also about reconnecting spiritually. So connecting with your spirit guides, connecting with that spiritual part of yourself. That bit's generally an introduction, because I do run a course that is, I run a circle that is all about really diving deep into that stuff, but we cover it when I work one-to-one with anyone. And then we look at energy, and that's understanding that you are a divine energetic being and how you can protect your energy. And that's so important. How you can start to honor your energy, and how you can start to go with the flow and stop thinking life has to be hard and start going with the flow. So that's very in line with Abraham Hicks. And then we move on to now, and very much in alignment with Eckhart Tolle. And really getting present, because we can waste so much energy going into the past or going to imagined futures, which neither are no longer real or ever were. So it's keeping you really present. And then we look at empowerment. So empowerment is, how can you really love yourself? How can you really embrace yourself completely? What are the areas you still need to love yourself? Those shadows, those parts of yourself that you are pushing away. It's time to embrace them. And then, as I work with people one-to-one, we can bounce around all those elements as to what's relevant for you in that moment. When I run my Serene Way online group program, we do run through that process. But it's also there for you online to keep bouncing back and forth, because things will come up for you.
Yeah.
And that's why there's an ongoing sanctuary it's an ongoing membership to keep giving you that continuing support, because the program's 7 months, but I've got women who did the program last year and are still working with me months later, and there's new stuff coming up still. But what's really beautiful about it, more than anything, is the community that's formed through doing the group. They're so close, and they're so supportive of each other, and so welcoming. Anybody new comes in, and they're just beautiful with each other. It's just that safe space where you can come and say horrible things about your mother, and nobody says anything. We're just like, yeah, get it, and it's there's just no judgment. Because if you speak publicly about mother wounds, you get vilified. Because I get it a lot. How can you talk about your mother that way? There's a culture of you owe your mother because she gave birth to you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't. The child doesn't make a commitment to the mother. If you choose to have a child, whether adoption, giving birth, whatever it is, you're the one who commits to the child, not the other way around.
Yeah.
If she's been kind and loving and amazing and sacrificing, and then course you honour that. But if she hasn't, if she hasn't been a safe source, a safe place for you, you've got to honour that too, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's I think a very pertinent and beautiful way to summarize this conversation. I really like that perspective, and in fact, it's something I talked about recently, around, you know, we must just, this generic belief about respecting your elders. And I was like, well, if your elders haven't, you know, if they haven't earned that respect, if they've mistreated you or abused you or not even been ready for you, you know, then where does that respect come from? It just comes from a place of hierarchy and it being a social norm, where rather than something that's actually valid, right?
Yeah.
So I really like that you kind of, I want to say ended the conversation, not that we have to rush you off, but I know that you've got an appointment to attend. So yeah, I think that was a really nice summary. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you for giving me the space to share this stuff, you know.
I'm sure that you could talk for hours or days about around to at some point.
Yeah, no, I can talk about this stuff endlessly. Partly because I've got ADHD and I can talk, but it's something I'm deeply passionate about. I felt so alone when I put contact with her. Nobody, unless you've been through that, can understand the grief and the loneliness. And the loneliness is the big one, because if your own mother hasn't been a source of safety, then the world can feel very lonely. And other people, and you see, you know, all we see on social media or on films is loving, amazing, incredible mothers. You might say like irritating mothers-in-law, but generally, you know, it's we must love and honour our mothers. And that brings great pressure that we're supposed to accept and keep going. You know, I still remember the first time my counsellor said to me, what would life look like without her? And I was like, I can't do that. Can't do that.
Yeah.
That was days later I cut contact because I was finally given permission.
Yeah.
All it took was somebody to give me permission to even consider it.
Yeah.
And then I tried to put a boundary in place. It was met with incredible anger. And I was like, I've got no choice now. So yeah, it's just, I am very passionate because I just want people to know that they're not on their own and know that there is support out there for them. And there's not just me, there's, you know, there's lots of people out there doing this work, way more than I ever realised. And I've now connected with a few of them, but it's, yeah, you're not on your own. And do reach out if this is resonating for you.
Well, someone's already in the comments asking for more information. So maybe once this video is posted, you can put your contact details and Facebook page and stuff in the link. People can get hold of you, and then, you know, we should do a round 2. So I'll talk to you about that in text after.
Yeah. See how long it takes us to do that. We will get there.
Lovely to see you.
You too. You too.
And best of luck with your book proposal. I'm working on mine as well.
I mean, and there's a lot still to do.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice to see you. Have a lovely afternoon. And as I said, pop your information in the comments so everyone can get hold of you.
I will do. You take care.
Bye.